Hi everyone, we won't be a moment, we're kicking off shortly. Right, we'll just give it another minute in case there's a few late people coming, and then we'll begin. Thank you.
Andrew, just checking you can hear me.
Yep, it's just fine, Pam. I'm recording.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, we will commence. So welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn for Sage CRE STP2 Reconciliation Reporting. Today's presenter will be Pam Bradley. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Pam.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm having all sorts of joys. Sorry. Just trying to share my screen. There we go. Okay. Lovely. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Today, we're just going to run through using the new report that we've got for STP Phase 2 reconciliation and just the steps, some things that might ease your pain in trying to reconcile your final file to the reconciliation report. Okay, so I'll just skip through. So you can see the agenda for today is just pointing you to our procedures. So if you've already downloaded a copy of our STP phased year-end payroll procedures, they've actually been updated, and if you could download another copy, that will be helpful. Step 4 is the only step that's changed, just to update it for phase 2. So if you've got a copy already, please download it again. We're also just going to look at the items involved in checking your STP setup, and then using the reconciliation report to reconcile to your final file. Okay. So in terms of checking your setup, you want to, I guess, just double check your employees. I imagine a lot of you would have spent a lot of time already checking that your employees were set up correctly. If you feel that you've got your setup accurate, then no need to do it. I mean, you've been reporting it for most of the year now, but it's not a bad idea just to go in and check your employees. Check that you've got the fields, the tax treatment code, the employment basis, the income type, home host country if it's applicable. Just check those fields on the employee setup to make sure that you've got the right values in there. Also, your pays, deductions and fringes. You're just double checking those STP classifications to make sure that you're happy that they're all classified correctly for single touch payroll phase 2. And the final step is if you have any of your pay IDs that are set up as other allowances, then you will also need to specify those pay IDs in the other allowances section of the single touch payroll settings under tools, modify forms. And you'll need to give the ATO description for each of those pay IDs. And those descriptions can be found in the great huge PDF that the ATO supplied. The good thing is there's an appendix at the back of that document that has like a quick reference guide to how to classify some of your pay IDs and what these codes would be. But if there's any uncertainty, please contact help@thrivetech.com.au and we can assist you in getting that sorted. So it's not a bad idea to do a quick check of all of these at year end, just in case anybody has set up any new pays, deductions or fringes throughout the year and they've neglected to classify those items correctly for STP. And the final part that we're really going to focus on today is reconciling the STP final file and the steps that you run through to do that reconciliation to the reconciliation report. So there's just a little snip here of the totals page on the reconciliation report. I'm going to give you a demo shortly to show you running that report, what it looks like and how to use it with that final file. But you'll see that there's a lot more involved in the phase 2 report, a lot more breakdown of your pays. And you would have known that from doing your classifications. And the final thing that I'm just going to run through is just some of these reconciliation issues that you might encounter. So, for example, if you've run your final file and you've got your reconciliation report and you might not have the right number of employees, you might have not enough gross pays because it could be that an employee is missing. The most likely culprit is the final event checkbox on the employee setup. So I'll show you some quick inquiries that you can run that will help you to identify those employees that may be missing from your STP final file because of that final event checkbox. So rather than me just talking to you and showing you a bunch of screens, let's jump in and have a look at running the report and how to use it. Now, if you don't have this report installed already, you would already have an STP reconciliation report, the original one. That's using the old settings. That is not the one you're going to use for this year if you're on phase 2 now. You definitely need a copy of the new report, the STP phase 2 reconciliation report, and it does definitely look a bit different. So again, contact our help desk if you don't have a copy of the report and you need to get a copy, and we can help you install it too if you need some assistance installing the report. Okay, so I'm just going to run this report now. So you're just going to be prompted for the date range. So this report can be used throughout the year if you wanted to use it to reconcile, throughout the year. So I've started on the 1st of July, but you want to put whatever date you're reconciling up to. So in this case, we're doing the whole fiscal year, so 30 June. Okay, so I'll just print preview it so we can all see it. Okay, so the report will have a single line across the top here, which has the employer totals for the pay event. So if you are using this report to reconcile a particular pay event throughout the year, if you put in that end date as your pay event date, so if you had a payment that went through today on the 22nd of June, you could put the final date as the 22nd of June, and you would have your employer figures for that pay event dated the 22nd of June showing here. All right, so because we're doing a year-end final file, we're capturing the whole year. There isn't actually a pay event on the 30th of June, so that's why these figures are all zeros. Okay, in your final file, we're not concerned about the employer figures. We're concerned about the year-to-date totals for all the employees. And particularly, if we go to the last page of this report, you'll see that we have a year-to-date summary for all of the different STP classifications. So this is all of the data that the ATO is now collecting. You can see in this instance, this company is quite simple, not a lot of different things being paid, but you may find you'll have some totals for your different allowances. You may have some lump sums. You may have some deductions. Anything that you've used throughout the year will tally up and show in these totals. And what we would normally do with this report is when you run it, you're going to use this little button up here in the top left-hand corner to export that report. And we're going to export it out as a PDF. And I've got one saved there before, so I'll just go over it. Okay, there's no message letting you know that the PDF is finished, but basically, as finished exporting, basically as soon as you can hit the close button, you know that it's finished exporting. Okay, while ever it's still trying to do the export, that close button, when you click on it, it won't respond, not until it's finished, and then you can click it and close it. So we've got that report exported. So I'll just take you through generating the final file. So into tasks, it's the same task you use every week or fortnight, month, whatever your payroll frequency is. Every time you have a pay event, you come in here to generate the single touch payroll file. And you would come in, put in your paid out. Now, for your year-end file, it's going to be 30 June if you're preparing your final file on the 30th of June or later. Now, if I was finished all of my payroll payments for June as of today, and I wanted to prepare this final file today, then I would need to date this the 22nd, because you can't submit a final file that is dated in the future. It's got to be, 30 June or earlier if you're preparing it earlier. So you wouldn't put a July date, you would at the latest, you would have 30 June. But if I'm doing it today, if I'm preparing my final year end today, I would date this file the 22nd of June. Okay. If you do put in 30 June, you won't be able to upload that file until the 30th of June. Okay. So with your submission ID, like all other files, when you're doing your STP, it's got to be a unique ID. So if last year you submitted a file and you called it final, then you won't be able to use that word final again this year. So I would suggest something along the lines of, incorporating the date. So maybe 30/06/23 final. Now, if you've got lots of entities that you're doing your payroll multi-entity, then perhaps add an abbreviation for the company so that you can prepare a file for each of your companies and have a unique name for each one. So let's just assume we're doing this on the 30th of June. Okay, so I'll have 30 June, I'll have the final file, tick final, tick the declaration, and then any conditions that you normally apply to filter your data for the company that you're preparing this for, apply those as usual. In this case, I don't need to do that. I only have my payroll in this instance for a single entity, so no conditions are necessary. Okay, so you'll see that the start button is grayed out. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. It's just because I ticked that checkbox. I just need to click away and the start button becomes available. So I can hit start and generate that file. You'll see you'll get a warning about the final file checkbox being ticked and just a warning about making sure that everything's posted. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Oh, can't use an underscore in the character, sorry. Okay, so that'll rip through, prepare the file, and hopefully you'll prepare with no errors. Now, if you do have any errors and you can't get to the bottom of them, again, shoot those errors through on a ticket on an email to our help desk, and one of us will give you a hand to resolve it. Now, what you would do next is go and upload that final file to your STP portal, and don't submit it at this point. You're just going to upload it, and when it gets to the review screen, you're going to use the button to download it to Excel. Now, that button is located at the bottom of the screen in your web browser. There'll be a button there that says download. You're going to download a copy, and it'll be a CSV file that it downloads. And you can then use that file to reconcile to your PDF that you've generated, your reconciliation report. So I've got a copy that I've already got downloaded from the portal. So I'm just going to open up that CSV file. Okay, now the first thing I normally do is just highlight everything and just auto fit those columns, and then go and split my view, freeze the pane so that I can just always see the names there. Now, you're going to need some totals. These figures at the front here at the very early columns, these are your employer totals. And as I said, in a final file, you expect these all to be zeros. If they're not zeros, then this is not a final file. You've most likely forgotten to tick the final checkbox. The other indicator is this final event indicator. That should be set to true. If it says false, again, you've forgotten to tick the final event checkbox. So you're going to scroll right across, and you're going to start seeing some totals, some of the columns with, if you've used them, they'll have amounts in them. So at this point, this fees deduction column, this is where it really starts having lots of totals. So I'd normally come in and just create a sum, and then copy that to the end of the report and paste it. Now, I know there's going to be columns in here that are just text columns that I don't really need, like this one here. I don't really need a total on it, but it's just the quickest and easiest way of getting those totals across all columns so that you can go and look at the relevant ones rather than having to go and sum up each column individually. It just gets that formula copied nice and quick. Okay, so at this point, I would normally open up my reconciliation report PDF that I exported. And let's just move that to kind of the middle of the screen. Now, I've got a nice little tip for you for when you're doing this reconciliation. If you're lucky enough to have two monitors and you're happy to have the Excel spreadsheet on one monitor and the PDF on the other monitor, then that could be one way to have them side by side. But if you want to have them side by side on the one monitor, usually you can select your PDF, hold down the window key on your keyboard and tap either the left or the right arrow. I'm going to do the right. And then pick the Excel spreadsheet to show on the other side of the screen. And so it's just a nice way of splitting your screen side by side and being able to compare them. So now the totals on this PDF are always on the last page. So just go right to the end and you'll see your section that has all of your company totals for everybody. And so now I'm looking to match up those figures against my report. Now, the other thing you can do is just format the columns so that they're all in like proper dollars and cents. That way you don't have any rounding issues. So you can see it's a matter of looking at the column you're on and finding that relevant column, so ordinary time earnings, down here, ordinary time earnings, and I'm balancing to the cent. Okay, so you're checking each of your figures in your Excel final file that you've downloaded from the portal, and you're making sure that each of those figures tie in perfectly to this report. And they really should be spot on if you've got everybody included correctly. Those figures should tie up to the cent. Okay, so you can see this spreadsheet, the file that the ATO collects. It is an enormous spreadsheet with a phenomenal number of columns. You can see I'm up to column QC, which is the very last column, which contains that superannuation guarantee figure. So basically, you're working your way through that spreadsheet, identifying the columns and tying it into this report. Now, the next part is the hard part. What if you have variances? So the most common variance is going to be not a problem so much with this report, because this report grabs all of your checks, all of your check records in payroll in the current year, in the date range that you specified. The problem is more likely to be that you have somebody or some people missing from this file, and the likely culprit is going to be that final event checkbox. So if you find that the figures in this file are less than what is showing in your reconciliation report, then it's going to be because there are one or more people missing. The best thing to do is to go into payroll and go and use inquiry, employee information, employee totals. Now this report will show you the year-to-date gross pay. Now I'm going to add some columns. So for those of you that are not familiar with adding columns, it's just go to the column heading, left click once, and you'll get this box appears. I'm going to add a column, and I want to add the final event. Now I just started typing the word final and it's jumped right there. You can use the find button if you want to. You can sort them so that they're sorted alphabetically. The field you're looking for is called final event. So you're going to pick that field, click OK. Now, if someone has been marked as final, it'll have an X in this column. And if they've got an X in that column, they're not going to be included in your STP file that's generated to be uploaded to the STP portal. They're going to be missing. So what you do is, some of you may have hundreds of people in here and you don't want to be sorting through pages and pages looking for them. So there's some conditions that you can set to easily identify these. So I'm just going to jump in and just change the first employee so that you can see. So if I jump in and go to the miscellaneous info and go and tick the final event. Okay, so let's just maximize this, that'll update it. Okay, so you can see that employee now has an X in that column. Now that would mean that when I lodged when I prepared my final file and uploaded it to the portal, drop it out to Excel, I would be missing $99,000 worth of gross pay. Okay, so that would be, my file would be short. My reconciliation report would have the whole lot, but my final file would be $99,000 short. Now, assuming we have pages and pages of employees and we want to find the ones that have this, this is the condition that you set. You go in and you first go to year to date. So again, I've just typed YTD. I'm going to say year-to-date gross pay is not 0. So I want anybody who has a year-to-date gross pay. I don't care about the zeros. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add another condition. It needs to be and then I'm going to that final event checkbox. So what I want to know is anybody where that final event checkbox is ticked when their year-to-date gross is not 0. Okay, so year-to-date gross not 0, final event is ticked. Apply that condition and straight away you'll see only the employee or multiple employees who have the final event checkbox ticked, but do have year-to-date earnings. So what you would do is then use that inquiry, keep it on the screen, jump back into your employee setup, locate those employees, and go and untick the final event checkbox. Now you'll see when you do that, the date does not clear. Don't worry about that. If it's grayed out, it's ignored. You won't be able to clear it yourself. As soon as you tick the final event and you're forced to put a date in there, when you untick it again, it's not able to be cleared, but just ignore it. Okay, so the key is untick the final event checkbox, save it. Once you think you've done everybody, just to double check, come back to your inquiry screen that you've left open in the background. All you need to do is click on the conditions button again, and don't change anything, just click OK, and this is what you should see. You should see that there are no employee records that match those conditions. Okay, so once you've done that, obviously the changes you've made have affected that STP final file. So you'd want to make sure that you go back into the portal where you uploaded that file and delete it. You don't want to leave it sitting there, and you definitely don't want to lodge it because it's missing a person. Okay, so delete that file, then come back into payroll and generate the file again as though you had never prepared it in the first place. Okay, you don't need to change the submission ID because you didn't lodge the other one, you deleted it. You can reuse the same submission ID, the same date, just generate the file again the same way you did it the first time, upload it and go through that reconciliation process again. And this time when it balances, happy days, you know that you can then go back to your portal and submit the file, knowing that it reconciles. All right, so I've been doing lots and lots of talking. Has anybody got any questions? Any problems that have encountered before that they just wanted to run by me? Yeah, open platform. I've put you all to sleep.
So, no questions from anybody for Pam? Okay then, this will conclude today's presentation. Thank you everybody for attending, and thank you for presenting, Pam.
No problems.
All right, thank you.
All right, and don't forget everybody, if you have any problems at all, please do contact our help desk. One of us will be able to give you a hand, jump online with you and give you a hand to sort things out.
Hi. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
No problems. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, guys.